All right, you guys. Hey, wonderful students. We're going to start on lesson 2.1 today in phase changes, causing freedom of movement changes. So, what we're going to do is we're going to do parts 1 through 3. So, in part 1, we're going to go to the warm up. And you're going to need your modeling molecules and phase sheets from your binder. I asked you guys to keep these, so make sure you find them. And you are going to review those drawings. You're going to annotate them, noting any of the changes you would like to make now that you know what happens at a molecular scale during phase changes. And you're going to briefly answer the question on the warm up and share your responses with your partner if you have a few minutes to do that. So make sure you answer the question of, have your ideas changed with what happens to molecules at the liquid, solid, and gas phase? If so, how did that happen? What evidence supports your ideas? If your ideas have not changed, what evidence have you found that supports your initial thoughts? So when you're done with your warm up, pause the video first so you can do your warm up. When you're done, we're going to move on to the next part of the lesson. So we're going to go on to activity 2. Recreating weird water events in a sim. So we know that we looked at before what happened to this area. So in 2007, we know that it was a dark spot in on Titan, and we are seeing that now in 2009, or closer to now, in 2009, 2 years later, that lake is much lighter. So what happened to it? That's what we're looking at. We just want to know, is it freezing or evaporation? We can't go to Titan, so we're going to try to figure it out other ways. So our chapter 2 question is, what could cause liquid methane to change its phase? We focused on what phase changes can occur. Before we can answer this question in chapter 2 about methane, we need to learn what causes phase changes to happen in general. So today we're going to look specifically at this investigation question. Instead of looking at the chapter question, we're going to think about what can cause molecules' freedom of movement to change. So as you go through this lesson today, make sure you're looking at what causes the freedom of movement to change. You will use the weird water article set that you used previously to determine what causes the change in the freedom of the molecules. So first you're going to reread and you're going to annotate your article about what causes freedom of movement to change. So you're going to focus on just that part. And if you look at your lesson, you guys have certain sections depending on the lesson part that you're reading. If you read about slot canyons, Iceland, Niagara Falls, or the Old Faithful Geyser, it'll tell you what paragraphs to reread to focus on just that, looking at the freedom of movement of the molecules. So pause the video here, take a few minutes to do that, and we'll move on. So next you're going to use the sim to gather evidence about what causes that change of the molecule's freedom of movement to occur. So in order to recreate the article, depending on which one you read, you're going to need to make liquid freeze, while others are going to make gas condense. So it just depends on which article you read. Then you will complete the row in the data table for the article you read. Use the words in the word bank when completing your row in the data table. So you've got words from the chapter to pull into your descriptions. Please make sure you use these vocabulary terms. So you're going to use that sim to recreate the phase change described in your article now and complete the rows in the data table for your article. I'm going to hop back over to Amplify so you can see what that looks like. So as you can see, I went over to card 2 on part 2. So we're on card 2 down here at the bottom. And you're just going to describe what you see in the article that you read in these sections below. You'll find your article and you'll answer these questions. What's the phase change? What caused the change in the phase? And how did you cause the same phase in the sim? So what did you do to make that happen? So remember to pause your video so you can go ahead and do that now. Now, once you're done with doing your sim and rereading, you're going to discuss it with your group members. You want to discuss all 4. So what are the similarities and differences between each of the phase changes that each group member explored? Make sure you get with someone who's done each one and share ideas about them. What are the differences between the phase changes each group member explored? And then, based on your observations, create a sentence that answers the investigation question. What can cause the molecule's freedom of movement of change? Remember, that's our focus for this lesson. So do you understand it now? So pause the video here so that you guys can discuss it. So let's look at that. What can cause the molecule's freedom of movement to change? Well, if you're freezing or you're condensing, energy is being transferred out, making it cool down, and so the temperature will get colder. If we're on this side, evaporating or melting, the energy is transferred into the substance, causing it to heat or get hotter or warmer in temperature. So, how would you answer the investigation question now? We're going to look at this last key concept here for this lesson. This is what your takeaway should be. When energy is transferred to or from a substance, it can change the molecule's freedom of movement. So what can change it? Remember, energy transferred into the substance causes a solid to melt to a liquid to evaporate to a gas, and then if we transfer out, we go from a gas to a liquid by condensing, and we go from a liquid to a solid by freezing. So when we think about temperature or things changing phase, the term heat may come to mind. What do you think when you hear the word heat? Discuss it with your partner. Pause the video here to do that. So the word heat is used in everyday language to mean different things, but scientists use the term heat to refer to energy transfer that happens between two objects. Because the temperature differences between those objects, we get that energy transfer. So if one's hotter, one's colder, it transfers from one place to another. Okay, we're going to move on to activity 3, modeling weird water events. So in the sim, you saw that transferring energy into or out of a substance can cause that substance to change your phase. So now we will use the modeling tool to show how energy in the substance can change phase too. So you're going to use some new features. You're going to have an energy bar on the side that shows how much energy that is in that substance. You're also going to have a change in energy arrow, and we're just going to go over those really quickly here. Okay, so we're going to look at this video here to see some of the new features you have. So this one is specifically for a puddle of water in the sun changing its phase in the modeling tool here. So we're going to look at some of those other features. So before you get started, there are instructions on the top. You can click that button and access at any time that you're using this part. So then let's see those 3 new changes. We've got one feature here where the energy is showing you either low or high or in the middle. So that's the energy bar. We also have the changes in energy, shows an increase or a decrease, and the energy transfer labels. So you need to add into the before section. You're going to click and drag one of these boxes into the before section. Click and drag one into the after section. So you're going to show what happens before the change and after the change. Click the little pencil in the corner to change the water molecules and the phase change in appearance before and after. You're also going to want to adjust these boxes to show, did it have more energy, higher, or did it have less energy, lower in the beginning? And then after it changed, what did that look like? If you look over here, these arrows over here, you're going to want to click and drag these arrows and put them in place after you've adjusted. You're going to put these in place to show that the energy has increased or decreased. Make sure that you stretch this arrow to the top and to the bottom. And then in this spot right here, you are going to drag over either energy went in or out. Make sure you adjust that arrow so that it goes from one line to the other. And you're showing about what happens in the puddle. So in the next part, you're going to need to make sure that you find the modeling tool that matches the article that you read. I'm going to hop back over to Amplify so you can see this, but you should see a link at the top of each one of them and it tells you what to do. So if at this point you haven't completed part 2, just go ahead and pause before you go on to this section. But just to show you guys, here's flash floods. If you go down here to the bottom on part 3 up here and click number 2, page 2, then you will be going to Glacier Caves, and then card 3 here is Niagara Falls, and card 4 is Old Faithful. So be sure to share and discuss the models by taking turns as the listener and the presenter. So in each role, you're going to ask these questions. If you're the listener, what do you hope to show with your model and how do you show this? If you're the presenter, do you have any questions about the model? Be sure to hand in your screenshot of your modeling tool. When you click that link up top, it should bring it to you and you can hit a hand in the top corner. Be sure to go back to Canvas and see what other should do's and must do's you have for the day, and make sure you review your divider tab with the key concepts on the back before you go and take your mastery check and move on to the next lesson.